I'm going to go back to an electrical experiment. In this theatre, someone said, "Mr. Faraday, what use is all this?" And he was my personal hero. He was the man who showed that Ohm's law was only all right for DC. I'm using this coil again. You put DC through it from a battery, and you get 4 amps and 8 volts. That coil has a property all its own, which we call resistance, Ohm's law. And with 8 volts and 4 amps, you get 2 ohms. Now we'll apply some alternating current to the same coil, and we'll get our same 4 amps. You got the wrong scale on, Benny. Can you put the scale right? We're not cheating. You can try this for yourself. This is obviously well known. The voltage is in fact 32. So now we have 4 amps and 32 volts, and we have apparently 8 ohms. We call them ohms, but they're not in Ohm's law. Ohm's law can't have 2 different values at the same time. The interesting thing is that over 140 years later, we don't say that Ohm's law was wrong. We simply say it is restricted to the use of DC. So, however distasteful it is, we now have to say that object has got something more than a mass. It's got a mass, and a mass only, so long as we want to push it about in straight lines, weigh it, accelerate it, so on. But if we ever choose to spin it, it has another property, all of its own, which corresponds to the inductance of a coil. This is the updating of Newton's laws of motion. But I'm not saying that Newton's laws of motion are wrong. I'm merely pointing out they are restricted to motion in straight lines and to motion where there is no rate of change of acceleration, just as there was no rate of change of current for Ohm's law. So that is at least some food for you to think about, and some indication that I have very strong ideas as to how these things work. So I find no difficulty in saying this thing in a black box had a mass, an angular velocity, and no angular momentum, because we know that in a reactive circuit you have volts, amps, and no watts. What is so difficult at that? And if the abominable no men outside this theatre, this is one of the letters I received, a man called my critics abominable no men. They say no before they've even watched.